Welcome to Out of Print Audio. As a quick recap, Henry has been sent to whitewash a couple living on a farm. Upon arrival, Mr. Jameson, one of the couple, begins to turn into a zombie. Episode 3 of Retrieval begins now.
Mr. Jameson's on one knee now, but still upright. "I need your hand, sir, if you can give it to me." I reach for his closest hand and pull it slowly towards me. At first, it comes easily, but I can feel him starting to pull away. Then he starts to jerk back and forth uncontrollably, his body starting to flail side to side. I step back a bit, still holding his hand, and watch as he starts rearing his head back. He starts to make moaning sounds, then, eventually growling, followed by wailing, then finally screaming. I can see the top of his face, his eyes starting to yellow. Maybe I have a bit more time than I thought. I pull his arm with all my force and can hear and feel his shoulder pull out of his socket. I try not to let the sound of his screams and cries break my concentration. I place his hand across the tablet, trying to keep the fingers flat. He's moving too much. The computer scan's not taking, just saying, "Read error." It's about this point where I can feel the change. His muscles are starting to strengthen in his forearm. I'm assuming the shoulder now is healing, looks like a second phase event. Tablet keeps calling out, "Warning, try not to move, hand scan incomplete." I let go of him and I pull my gun. He stops cold. He turns towards me. I see the ghost of recognition in his eyes. Okay, definitely a second phase event. His chest stops moving. Seems like he's holding whatever breath he still has. He calms down for a bit. I holster my weapon. "I don't mean to rush you, but I gotta get the paperwork done. Can you sit with me?" He snarls and curls his lips and begins to bare his teeth. I punch him in the throat. I should have just done the stupid scan instead of asking him. As he begins to gasp for air, I grab his hand and watch as he falls to the ground, making a wheezing sound. I see an approval light up on the computer. Handprint accepted and received. I push him down against the ground and sit on top of him in a mount position. The weight of us sinks us into the wet earth, mud starting to appear all over my legs. His throat must have healed because his hands are starting to reach for me, trying to grab my neck, his fingers almost under my nose. I lift my knee from his side and drop it onto his chest. I fight with his hands and place them under the same knee. I can hear his ribs start to crack a little under my weight. I jam the tablet into his face and hope the scan takes. He's starting to use his hips to try push me off. This damn thing better move quickly.
Warning, try not to move. Face scan not complete. Trying again.
I place the tablet on the ground and I take out my gun again, shooting him in both kneecaps. He begins to convulse and spasm, white foam coming from his lips. I put my gun away knowing shooting him now is worthless. The shots I made into his kneecaps blow the fabric away and I can see the bleeding on his knees stop and begin to heal. He continues pulsing, his eyes rolled to the back of his head. His tear ducts now begin to cry out blood. He screams loud, making a low guttural sound at first, then raising into a high-pitched howl, like a gorilla that's been possessed by a banshee. And then it stops, completely, like all sound has disappeared from the world. You know what that means? Paperwork time. I take out a rag from my belt. I wipe his mouth clean. I clear out his eyes. I look around. There's a hose nearby. I leave him for a second. I come back with the hose on. I wash his face down a little. It's good enough. I use the rag to wipe his face a final time. Despite what's coming, at least his eyelids are open in this phase. I can see his eyes are back to normal. Scan takes a second. Approval pops up.
Face scan accepted and received. Wesley Jameson has now been recorded. Your work has now been completed. Termination and cleanup has now been approved as per request 3004. Be safe and remember the 2 phases.
I go back to the truck. The harnesses should be here somewhere. Ah, yeah, by the box as usual. I go back. I pull his arms into the harness. For a big man, it goes on smoothly. It goes over the legs well, too. Harness is now in place. I take some of the tent pegs out of the side pockets of the harness and lock him down to the ground. He's not going anywhere for a minute. Still can't burn him yet. Will heal too fast if I try. Same reason I can't kill him right now either. You have to let the incubation period set in for these evolved types. I remember when they first started. Those were some dark days. I can see the double doors of the property are still open. Guess this was where Mr. Jameson came from when he first came out to greet me. As I approach, I can see different colored towels snaked along a wooden floor. I see long streaks of now dried blood. The trail leads to a denim-wearing woman lying face down. She has tan leather gardening gloves on her hands, almost looking like those fancy driving gloves people used to wear. She still has her boots on, the dirt dry under the tread. For some reason, her pants are pulled down a bit. That's not normal. That's something else, something different. I take my shoes off before I go inside, less to clean that way. I turn her over. Face is still normal. Looks like bruising along her neck, and oddly, her pants were undone in the front. She has some sort of thumb-looking bruising on her hips, too. You know what this means? Must be paperwork time again.